I followed my dreams and opened an antique store to have adventures and spend time as a family. Sometimes you have to climb a mountain and open some new doors to find the treasures inside. This is our life, this is our adventure, and this is Curiosity Inc. Hey everyone, so I have been at it again this weekend. I was out with some lovely folks. In fact, the people that I bought the little Frontenac police car from, fantastic people, love them very much. They invited me back over to buy some antiques. So I went over to their place, loaded up the ambulance, and we're gonna unpack inside and show you what we got. So, the ambulance is pretty darn full. It's gonna take me a few minutes to get this stuff all packed indoors. We're gonna do the sorting at the house today because I'm closed. Normally I do this at the shop, but we're gonna do it here at home, and we're gonna go through these boxes and see what's in store. And thankfully I have a patient and understanding wife because this is what she has to look forward to. But I'm gonna get this out of here by tonight or tomorrow morning, so it's just a one night kind of deal. It's gonna be a lot of sorting, but thankfully she's pretty okay with the business and okay with my craziness, and has been for a really long time. But I have to respect the space and get it back in one piece. So let's start cracking into these boxes and see what's inside. So here we go, box number one. There's a combination of kind of new and old. Her husband was a very interesting fellow, a hot rodder, a collector of car stuff, and into sports memorabilia. So I'm sure there's gonna be some neat stuff in these boxes. So one of the first things I see here, there's some old model kits and some other cool stuff. This is a 67 Cougar. I imagine he got it because they actually have a 67 Cougar. I'm gonna set that down. If I look, here's the box for it. So this is a vintage, and when I say vintage, I mean it's not antique, it's 1967 roughly, because that's when this car came out. AMT kit, and it's 1/43rd scale, original box, and original toy, which has been built, but nice little set together. Let's see what else is in here. Okay, we're gonna have to open up these boxes here. 132 scale 40 Ford, little hot rod, and it's unbuilt. In original packaging, you look at that, the original price 49 cents, but look, you got it on sale for 25 cents. When people back in the old days would say, oh, you could buy anything for a quarter, I could buy, you know, a chocolate bar for a nickel. Well, look, you could buy a model kit for 25 cents. I guess your dollar went a little further back then, but you also got paid less too, but that's pretty cool. There's actually a few model kits in here. Ford, little Fairlane Sunliner. Again, I can feel that that one's all inside the box too. And another Ford Tudor, another 25-cent special. And these all feel like they're full and unbuilt. Another Sunliner, so we got a couple of those ones. So far, nice little stack of model kits there. 1950s or 40s. Let's see. Nice little camera. Let's see, what is the brand name on this one? Jiva Box. So I'll have to do a little research on this one. It is a Jivaert or Javert. Yeah, I'm probably butchering the name of that, and I apologize. I haven't run across this type of camera before. It looks like a Brownie, but much more industrial. So we'll do a little research on that and see if I can update this video later and get a bit more info on it. Let's see. Here's a little box here. We'll kind of go through and see what's inside. Presented to our coworkers on the occasion of the centennial year, 1957, and it's a spoked wheel. Pretty cool. I mean, it's obviously from 1957 and in perfect condition. Little lighter in the original box. AMA, of course, is the Alberta Motor Association, and also known as CAA or AAA in the US. So, blades, it's kind of cute. This is a little Coke bottle. Of course, Coca-Cola stuff is fairly collectible. I'll get that in better light. But this is a lighter. I can honestly say I haven't seen a little Coca-Cola lighter, but it doesn't surprise me. They've marketed a lot of stuff over the years, and you can kind of get a sense, if I can see what the logo is on it, of the age. It is a glass bottle, but judging from the age of this other stuff, it's probably 1950s as well. And some other little odds and ends too. Another miniature kind of bullet-shaped lighter. And a little magnifying glass. This is a advertising bottle opener. Highlander beer. for opening Highlander beer. Don't even try to open any other type of beer with this. It just won't work. Well, actually it would, but it's their recommendation. Got a tiny little pocket knife. Where did it go? Here it is. Just an itsy bitsy little knife, like a novelty knife. A lot of these were made in Japan. Would have been sold at dime stores, that sort of idea, but kind of a cute little thing. Some pins and some other stuff. Little blood donor pin. So some odds and ends in there. Another lighter. So some neat stuff. And these are a couple neat items too. These were inside of that box. These are dealer promotional models. So if I take it out, so you'll see that's them talking about the new 64 Ford Thunderbird. And what's interesting about this, and I'll see if I can get on the bottom there, you can read, if I can kind of get the right angle here, that it talks about the warranty period that you got on the car and all the specifications about the car. So these would have been given out to people who were interested in buying that car so that they could take it home, their kids could play with it or put on display and kind of entice them to come back for that car. So we've got 2 dealer promo models and they are in absolutely perfect condition with the original boxes. These were most likely made by AMT that also built plastic models, but condition's fantastic and super cool. Couple other model kits. This one's not that old. It's probably from the 90s or 2000s, but it's never been used. What's more interesting is this one, 68 Cougar XR7, and this is an old kit, but it's still sealed in the plastic, and that's very desirable to collectors. That should be a pretty easy sale for me, considering it's in such perfect condition. I mean, it's still in the plastic. Very great piece. Yeah, and there's some other stuff too. So I know there's a lot of these baseball books in here, which we'll go through later. At the bottom of the box, let's see what's in here. Little novelty cap gun. Right there, it says Victory on the side. And this would have just shot. It's looks like a Luger, but just a little guy in its holster. A little cool novelty piece, and we'll open this bag up and see what's in there. Okay, so some tiny little cases, some old men's watches. That one has a little bit of staining on it. And these are mechanical wind-up watches, so nothing that's too big of a brand name, but they are mid-century, so they're 1950s. This one's probably more of a 1940s. This is what they call a boy size watch, and they used that size in the Second World War. You see some old Rolexes that size too. That's not a Rolex, that's an Elgin. But the smaller watches were less prone to getting damaged when you were in battle, so that's why they used that size. And then there's another one here that needs a little TLC, but yeah, a few little fixer-upper watches. There's a watch band too, so yeah, some little odds and ends. And it looks like a couple other more modern collectible die-cast toys in 1/43rd scale. These are probably mail away. They did like Danbury Mint, Franklin Mint, that kind of idea. There's a little certificate of authenticity. National Motor Museum Mint. So yeah, these are probably a decent quality little model. Opening doors and hood and the whole works. So I've got a couple of those. That looks like it's a 36 Ford pickup and then 36 Ford Cabriolet. But yeah, a couple of neat things. So that's box number 1. Pretty good haul so far. On to the second box. Okay, so a couple of old men's hats. And let's see what it says on the inside here. The Klondike hat. Now we have a carnival or event that happens here that we call Klondike Days. And well, we used to call it Klondike Days. They just call it K-Days now. But it's just like, you know, kind of like when the circus comes to town. People used to dress up in old Klondike fashion like it was a gold rush. And they kind of stopped doing it because, well, the area I'm in, Edmonton, really never did have much of a gold rush. That was more north, but they seem to live off of the gold rush fever here for quite a while, and people dress up. So there's a couple little Klondike hats that were probably worn to that event. This is a very old baseball hat. This would have been a child's hat. It's non-adjustable, so it's probably 40s or 50s. It's got that right kind of age to it. This fellow was a ball player from a kid all the way up through high school and beyond. So there's, I guess, what would have been his sweater. So that was the Jasper Place Tigers. It was a baseball team. So this would have been maybe their jersey or sweater. This says Jasper Place on the back. So neat little piece there.
And this, let's see if I can get that out here. This is an old serviceman's smock that they would have worn at a gas station. And in this case, actually, it was for something cooler, the Leduc Drive-In. Now, this family was involved with the drive-in. I believe they owned it, or the family owned it. That explains why there's some drive-in memorabilia. But really neat. How cool would this be to have in your man cave hanging on a wall? Everybody loves drive-ins. Everybody who's into old cars thinks that they're super cool. And to have an original drive-in attendant's smock, pretty neat too. And it's size 40, so it's a size that somebody might actually be able to fit nowadays too. Since humans were tiny back in the old days compared to now, that's a pretty neat item. Let's keep digging. And there's going to be an awful lot of books and magazines, and the right kind of magazine and the right kind of books are worth money. It all depends on the subject matter and the context. We do a lot of hot rod magazines, a lot of guy stuff at the shop, so sports, baseball, hockey, hot rods, motorcycles, that kind of stuff. So if I ever come across vintage magazines or books from the era, which is pretty much like 1980s or before, I usually pick them up and we put them in the library we have at the shop. So we're going to dig through this box, which looks like it's a lot of books, and see what kind of titles are in there. So right off the bat, we've got an early printing of The Godfather. This isn't the first edition. If it was, it would probably be fairly collectible. This is, I believe, the second edition from 1969. The first one was, I believe, in 68. But that's still pretty early, and a great book, great series of movies. I'm sure somebody would be interested in buying that. So with Mad Men being popular, here's an early book, Confessions of an Advertising Man. I'm sure there's some pretty good stories in there. Some little brochures on, how to be a father figure, how to be involved in a family. And they used to hand these out sometimes at churches and places like that. So we're going to go through, I'm going to dig in, we'll just do a recap of kind of what sort of books we found in here afterwards. But I can see there's some, like Bob Feller, Hall of Fame baseball player. And here's one of his books right there. Great picture. So there's all kinds of neat stuff. We're going to sort these through and see what we have. Okay, so as you can see, there is a huge amount of books that just came out of this one box. And if we look at some of the titles, we see some early NHL hockey record books there. Look, 1917 to 49. So that's not exactly new. And that's Bill Durnan on the cover, who was a Canadian goalie. We've got, look, and at that time, goalies had no mask. They were getting those pucks shot right in their face. Wasn't until a little later on that they ended up getting the hockey mask. But look at all these great old books. We've got Babe Ruth, Joe DiMaggio, all kinds of football and hockey books, custom car magazines, hot rod magazines. And this stuff is early too. This is 1953, 1952. A lot of these magazines are very difficult to find, and the condition on these is fantastic. Great for collectors, and if you're into old hot rods or building cars, there's a lot of tricks you can actually learn in these magazines on how these guys built their early cars. So if you're doing a period build, pretty invaluable stuff to have. So really great selection of nice period books, 40s and 50s stuff, just what I was looking for. And also there was a pretty early variety of photography magazines. Now this was sort of a way for guys to buy pinups without embarrassing themselves at the store, so they'd call them photography or salon photography, so you could basically learn how to shoot pictures, but it was probably more about the subject matter than anything with this stuff. But there are collectors for this kind of stuff too, and there's a fair number of these here. I'm starting to dig through box number 3, and right on the top there's some very early Popular Mechanics magazines. I always loved these early covers. They were so fantastic and so out of this world, and they were dreaming so big. Really everything that you think of when you think of America and you think of pre-war or even post-war, the sky was the limit. Robots and airplanes and hovercrafts and whatever you could think of was possible. And these covers are great artwork, and it looks like I've got quite a few, so let's have a look in the box. So yeah, there are quite a few of these early Popular Mechanics and some pretty cool looking inventions on the covers. And judging by the 25 cents, I'm going to say this is probably 1940s or so, or even possibly 1930s. We'll see if we can get a date off of the inside. Sometimes you can tell by the, 1937. So these are from the 30s. Let's have a look. What else is in here? So, early boxing magazines. the guy was into boxing. These would be pretty cool. 1948. It looks like I've got a pretty big stack of these in here. I'm going to go through and see exactly how many I have, but I'm going to guess there's probably 50 or so of these 1940s boxing magazines. Look at the artwork on the covers. I mean, how great would that be, even framed and up in your office, or part of your collection too? I mean, these are in great shape. Some more hot rod magazines from the 1950s. This one's April 1955. This one's a little bit newer, 72, when they're starting to get into the show vans. But that is cool, and guys are into the show vans. Old car and drivers, you know, sometimes these guys would cover off European cars too. So lots and lots of magazines here, some more of these boxing magazines in here. So I'm going to take a minute to dig through this box. I'll get them piled out on the table and see exactly what's in here. So there ended up being a really big stack of these early boxing magazines, and they were mainly 1945 to 49. Although there was, and you can see, you know, Joe Louis. There was one here that's from when Cassius Clay changed the name to Muhammad Ali. So there's, you know, will the real heavyweight champ please stand up? So there was controversy about him changing his name, of course, at the time. Kind of a historic issue of the ring, really. And that's in there too. So tons and tons of stuff. Most of those, I'd say like 99% are from the 1940s. We also got a stack of Popular Mechanics and some True Detectives as well. And these are great, you know, pulp fiction in magazine format, all kinds of great detective stories, noir kind of stuff in there. And up here, some early sports magazines. So old Sports Illustrated from 72, basketball edition, and then the baseball one here, Sport Life. And that's got to be 1950s as well, 25 cents. All in all, pretty good haul of magazines. And here's something kind of neat. I don't know if you can tell what it is right off the bat, but this would have been given to you at a drive-in movie theater that you would have clamped on. And it's a drive-in tray, a travel tray. So you would have taken this to your drive-in when you got there, or to your, you know, drive-in movie or drive-in diner. You could have this in your car and just pop it on your own, so you'd have your own tray there. Kind of a neat, nostalgic piece. And I was looking through some of these too. This was kind of interesting because it's an old baseball box, really old one. But what was inside is what it says on the box. There are baseball shoe heel spikes and foot spikes. So if you recall, like, you know, Ty Cobb or some of those guys, they did use spikes in their shoes to get better traction. Since the metal ones like this have been outlawed, but these are new old stock baseball spikes, probably from the 50s, I would imagine. And a nice old baseball. Maybe I'll find the ball that went in there too. And here's an old granola digestive biscuits, and it looks like it's been made into a piggy bank, which doesn't really surprise me too much. Nothing inside other than a little bit of dust, but kind of a nice decorative piece either way. And remember how I was saying Klondike Days used to be a really big deal around here? Well, I did find some other memorabilia. Let's have a look. I was going through some of these old maps, and it says welcome to Edmonton. And it says home of the fabulous Klondike Days in Edmonton, July each year. So there's, I think his name was Klondike Pete, if I recall. It's been a while since I've had to think about Klondike Days, but this little brochure is just, or this pamphlet here is full of stuff about Klondike Days. So this is from 1967. So people dress up kind of old-fashioned. There's some napkins and some other stuff. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff about the Klondike and why we used to attend and all that. So neat. And I like how on the map here it shows moose. You know, there's deer up there, elk, moose, deer. So I guess it was trying to give you an idea about where these sorts of animals were. Funny story, back in the 1960s, my dad was flagged down on the highway by some people that were in from out of town. They were at a deer crossing sign, and they'd been waiting for hours, and they waved him, and he slowed down, and he said, well, what do you want? And they said, well, we're just wondering when the deer cross. And they didn't get the idea that that was a warning that deer might cross. They thought there was like a specific time that maybe they herded them through or something. So yeah, sometimes these are just suggestions, but yeah, my dad got a pretty good laugh out of that for years, still does. And here are some road maps. I do keep my eyes open for old road maps, especially ones from service stations. Guys who are collecting service station memorabilia like to get the accessories with it too. So there's a nice Texaco, a nice Imperial Esso. So there's a few old road maps. I'm sure there's a few others in here too, and some more Klondike paraphernalia. So this is how they used to recommend that you would dress when you went to this event. You know, it's a lot of work to go into it, but people did it. You know, for years and years, they used to dress up like that just for fun. So I'll go through the rest of the paperwork here and see if there's anything else kind of cool mixed in with all these papers. And I'm starting to lose track of what box I'm on here. I think this is about the 5th box, but this one is more ephemera, more paperwork, but we're gonna see what's in here. Right off the bat, we're seeing some vintage old Mercury Cougar car brochures, which makes sense since they had a Cougar. Ford for 1967, the LTD. And this actually matches up with those salesman sample models I got. So they must have been hitting up the dealerships looking for new cars around 67. And they landed on the Cougar as the car for them. But there was probably some other ones they were looking at the same time. So if you have a 67 Meteor or a 67 Cougar or something like that, these are pretty nice pieces to have that kind of set off your car. And they're really nice color brochures with all sorts of information. These are way better than the magazine articles that you get out of, you know, National Geographics and things, Life magazine, stuff like that. This is the actual one from the dealership. So sought after by collectors, and it looks like I might have an entire box full of this stuff. So I'm going to dig it out, see what there is, and then we'll do a little review, a recap after. 69 Marauder, 69 Cougar, 69 Mustang, there's a good one. Lots of Mustang guys out there. And I'm sure, you know, if you had the hot model of Mustang, this would be a really neat thing to have to go along with your car. So we've got Mustang, all kinds of stuff. 69 T-Bird. And you could tell the Thunderbirds at that time were a really high-end car, and you can even tell the printing of the paper is much heavier stock. 68 Cougar. So yeah, lots and lots of Ford brochures, and my understanding is he was a Ford enthusiast. So if somebody's into Ford stuff, there's a nice variety of brochures in here. And here's some slightly older ones too. This one's for 62 Ford Fairlane. And actually, when I met my wife, I was driving a car pretty much exactly like this that I painted myself. You know, the best that a 17-year-old could paint a car, but I had one of those, and that's what I was driving when we first met. Oh, this was kind of neat. This is a brochure for the XP21 Firebird. This is an experimental car that they were talking about. So they may have had this in the dealership, but pretty unusual. I don't think I've seen too much on the Firebird, on the prototype cars in terms of brochures. That's kind of cool. That might have come from a car show, like a Motorama sort of idea. This one for about a 57 T-Bird, 55 Ford. So we're getting some older stuff in here too. But I'm going to have to go through this stuff and kind of see what the values are, because I don't know specifics on every single manual, but I do know that guys at car shows and at our shop will buy the ones that match their car. I doubt whether I'm going to have the guy who comes in with the XP21 Firebird looking for his owner's manual or brochure for that, but it's a neat piece either way. Some early brochures from Las Vegas from 1960. That's early days for Vegas. And this is from Sahara. Nice little postcard that they would have included, but this is probably stuff out of a hotel that on a vacation down there he decided to bring back. So there's the menu for Dinah's original pancake and chicken house, because who doesn't like pancake and chickens at the same time? So there's a few of these in here. I gotta make a pile of Las Vegas stuff. Edmonton Oilers 1981-82 calendar, and in 81-82 Edmonton had a very winning team. Of course, Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier. So paraphernalia from the early 80s like that, late 70s can be pretty collectible too. More Las Vegas stuff. So it kind of goes on and on. So it's going to take me a while to kind of get through all this stuff. But a lot of magazines, a lot of paraphernalia, and you know, a lot of it's very collectible too. This is kind of neat. These are from a movie theater back in the 1940s. And these would have been given to the theater owners to try and convince them on new techniques. So this one's talking about Super Scope, new anamorphic process on your giant screen. And then they actually gave a sample of a movie. So the original scene is photographed on Super Scope. That's much wider. And then anamorphic print. So it actually lengthens it a little bit. So they're talking about a movie here that has... It's called Ready Christmas with Howard Hughes, well, made by Howard Hughes, Jane Russell. So these are all different movies that they were kind of talking about at the same time too. RKO pictures, neat piece of cinema history. And then there's some guides to what to do around town, theater programs. So this is the Roxy Theater. and they're talking about what plays are coming up or what movies are playing. So some interesting stuff. And I was going through, there's all kinds of ticket stubs and things like that, but some of these are quite old. So you can see this is the premiere of, so this is Sharp Shows, Athabasca, Westlock, Barhead, and then coming attractions, so the movies that were coming. So these are all movies that were coming out at that time. But you can see one of the movies they're advertising is Snow White, Disney's first full-length feature. So this is quite early, talking about the first screening of Snow White, and that's an original little program for a movie theater. And I've got stacks and stacks and stacks of these early movie theater brochures and handouts, and even tickets. Roxy Circuit Theater special show, 40 cents. So I'm going to go through this and see what else is in here. Lots of neat movie theater stuff. This is pretty cool. Let's have a look at this. This is a box office picture guide, and this would have again be given to the theaters. It's from 1943, so wartime, and they talk about all the different production companies that were making movies and then what they had at that time. So Murder in Times Square, One Dangerous Night. So these are all the movies that were up for offer. They talk about the movie itself, which is pretty interesting just to read too, who was in it and how to promote the movie. I've actually never seen one of these before, and I know that a lot of movie theaters probably would have had these, but this is a, yeah, it's got reviews, all kinds of stuff in there, so pretty neat. If you had a movie theater in 1943 and you needed to know what to play, that would have been sort of like your Bible, your reference guide. So I am pretty happy with the vast amount of interesting stuff that we've gotten so far. I'm going to keep digging, see what else there is. I always find movie stuff really interesting. I worked in that industry for 10 years myself, working on movies and TV shows. And whenever I come across film-related stuff, I have a special spot in my heart for it, and it's something that's really neat, and you don't see it that often, especially the behind-the-scenes industry stuff. Never worked in a movie theater myself, but to see how they promoted the films and how those pictures were put out, really neat piece of Hollywood history. So we'll have to see what else is in here. I know there's some other movie memorabilia. With luck, maybe there's some autographs, who knows? We're gonna keep digging. Something different. We've all heard of lava lamps, but did you know they also made lava lamp outdoor citronella candles? So I guess you had the lava lamp experience, but it would keep the mosquitoes away. Have not seen that before. This one was never used. Kind of an oddball piece, and definitely kind of worth picking up. Some old service station cans, still full. Texaco Atlas brake fluid. So these sorts of things can be nice little additions to guys' garages in their collection. Some really old Noma Christmas lights still in the package. And yeah, these are, they've got some age to them. I'd say probably 1950s or 60s. And there's 3 boxes of them that if they'd been used, they were put away perfectly. They might just be unused, but there are people who collect vintage Christmas lights too. Some other things down underneath the boxes there. Let's have a look. So military patch. It's a German belt buckle in World War II. They don't use that symbol anymore. And a bullet lighter. And some people might call this trench art, but these were usually mass produced. It wasn't made from a real bullet. They were made to look like a bullet. And this one is made in Canada. So not too many things that we find nowadays made in Canada or the USA, so it's nice to see something that is intact and in good condition and collectible and cool. There's also stacks and stacks and stacks of old 1960s comic books. We're gonna have to go through those. I don't think there's any Superman or anything like that. It's mostly Archie or romance books, Classics Junior, but there are boxes and boxes full. So we're gonna sort through any ones that are in tough condition. We probably won't hang on to, we'll auction off. And the rest, well, that'll be a chore to go through those because it looks like there's probably about 400 comics here. We're gonna have a look-see in this bag here. This appears to be a gun, but I can tell it's not a real gun. It's a pellet gun. It's a Crossman. This is not a prohibited weapon anyway. In fact, it's just a pellet gun. And I figured I'd probably come across it since I saw the box around here somewhere earlier. I'll find, oh, here it is right here. That's for that. So, yeah, nice little piece. They still sell these. I mean, these are pretty accessible. You can get them at hunting stores or sometimes at department stores. So it just shoots a little pellet. But yeah, fairly collectible thing. And at the time, it was $50 back when they bought it. This was when Coleman had it. So that could be probably 1970s or so. But yeah, interesting little thing. And looks like it's all complete and in good shape. Already I can tell this is going to be a fun box. We've got a tiki mask. And a lot of people are doing the tiki rooms in their house, kind of that retro 50s kind of vibe. And of course you can't have a tiki room without some bongo drums. These are decent quality too. Nice heavy weight. And let's see what else is in here. Some baseballs. This one is autographed, it looks like. 1947. To see who the signatures are from. There's a few oldies in here, so we're going to start digging through and see what we can find. Some pipes. A little hand-carved bulldozer. Probably done during the war when there wasn't much for metal toys going around. I mean, you had a pretty good period of time there where kids could not get toys, so you had to make them yourself. Now here's a styling jacket. Gabardine or houndstooth check with red trim. That would have been pretty flashy. It's still in the old dry cleaning bag, but pull that down so you can see. This would have been a pretty flashy jacket back in the 50s. Maybe that's what he wore to Las Vegas. Here's a nice little pocket transistor radio. And I doubt there's batteries in it or that it's working right now. If there are, they're probably no good. But transistor radios are pretty popular. We'll set that up top. These are, I believe they call them chain pants. And they're high-waisted. They're kind of not quite rockabilly. They were what the early hot rodders and bikers and stuff would wear. These are from probably the 40s, early 50s, and in remarkably good condition too. They look quite wearable. I mean, they made stuff really to last back then, and vintage clothing is pretty hot. So glad I got these guys. And yeah, you can see it's got the belt here and then the higher waist. I mean, if you're riding your motorcycle or something, the higher waist kind of protects your backside from showing when you're leaned over. That's why those guys like them. And there's another jacket here. So, it's a letter jacket. Football. $49.50 junior football. I have to find out what team that was. But that's probably his high school letter jacket. $49.50. And some old ashtrays. These would have service station kind of ashtrays. Some pipes. And a little pipe stand. A few little more modern 1980s kind of Hot Wheels. So yeah, lots and lots of stuff. And this is pretty cool too. Now, we're going to go through this and see, but I know it's pretty well sports stuff in here. But at one time this was a Royal Air Force bag with the guy's name on it and everything. And I guess after the war, you know, you come back and you play some baseball. So we're going to dig out these old bats and gloves and see what's in this bag. So some of these are quite old. You can see the finger patterns. This is a catcher's mitt. It's 3 fingers with a little bit of webbing. And you can tell the earlier gloves because they were literally just a glove. A slightly padded glove, a little bit of webbing, not too much. And you look at, here's a newer glove that's in there. I mean, which one would you rather be catching with? Definitely that one. But yeah, this is old stuff. And I was looking at this one baseball bat here. Now it's in pretty rough shape, but you can make out that it was a Stan Musial bat, wooden. And a few of these oftentimes would have names of baseball players. So this is early stuff. So we're going to keep digging in here and see what else we can find. And in the bottom of the box, or the bottom of the bag I should say, there were some early Wilson baseballs with some real age to them, but look, they're unused. And this is a professional series, horsehide, anchored and balanced winding. So this is a professional ball, you know, probably from the 40s, and there's several of them here, unused, great shape. And well, that one's been used. These two are new. Pretty neat.
Because of the vast quantities of stuff, it took me nearly 2 days to go through all the boxes and sort everything out. There was lots of smalls, so brochures, pamphlets, hockey memorabilia, all kinds of great stuff, including some early autographs and lots of local historic pieces. I can honestly say I'm exhausted. It's been a lot of fun going through it, but I'm ready to get everything out the door and on to new homes. I'm so glad that you guys come along with us on these adventures. This was a pretty fun one. We unpacked it at home, and if you ever have the chance, pop by the shop and see us. Or you can visit us online as well at curiosityedmonton.ca. We're on Instagram under Curiosity Inc. YEG, on Facebook under Curiosity Incorporated, and well, of course, yeah, you know, come by and see us. That's probably easier than going to all the websites, but we're always happy to see you. No matter how you see us, we're just happy that you're with us. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Yeah, more adventures to come. We'll see you guys soon, and bye for now.